Genocides are sadly a common thing in human history, especially in the last 2 centuries. The most well-known of them all is probably the Holocaust, the murder of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany. There is an illusion in society that genocides are a thing of the past and don't occur too often today. But this illusion is completely wrong. Genocides are still happening in many parts of the world. However, we need to differentiate from so-called genocides like the Israel-Hamas war. After Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th and brutally killed over 1,000 people, the Israelis started a counter-offensive in the Gaza Strip, which resulted in the deaths of 70,000 people to this day, half of them Hamas terrorists. It's obvious that every civilian death in war is one too much, but these are pretty solid statistics for an urban conflict. Regardless, many left activists and the left media immediately said that Israel committed a genocide against the Palestinians, which was a ridiculous claim from day one. But what is the reaction to other real genocides? Well, in Sudan, there currently happens one. And the left media stays completely silent, a classic double standard. So, because nobody talks about the Sudanese genocide, I will. In this video, I will break down the Sudanese civil war, why a genocide happens and who the victims are. Before we start, please like the video and subscribe to this channel. It would greatly encourage my work on this new and small YouTube channel. I am Paul and this is Global Politics. The Sudan is a Central African country that got its independence from the United Kingdom in 1956. The following years were marked by countless coups and constant political instability. In fact, Sudan is the country with the most coups in all of Africa since its independence. In one of these coups, in 1989, a general called Umar al-Bashir took power, and he ruled until 2019 when he was deposed by, you guessed it, the military. During his time in power, the southern part of Sudan, which is majority Christian, gained independence in 2011, becoming South Sudan, the world's youngest country. After the 2019 coup, an interim government was formed, but it was quickly overthrown, once again by the military. Since then, the Sudanese general Abdel Fattah Burhan rules Sudan as its de facto leader. In 2013, during the reign of Bashir, he founded the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, short RSF, which was intended to be an elite unit loyal to Bashir. They participated in the war against the Darfur Rebellion, which was an uprising by non-Arab tribes who live in the Western Sudan, where they were accused of countless war crimes. They also participated in the Libyan and Yemeni civil war and took part in the 2019 coup. In 2023, their commander Mohammed Hamdan Daglo launched a rebellion against the central government, which turned into the Sudanese civil war that continues to this day. On the 15th of April, RSF forces attacked army bases in the capital Khartoum and other parts of the country. They reported that they took control of the Khartoum airport, the presidential palace, and other parts of the country. A shootout was also reported near the residence of President Burhan, who was brought to a safe location. By 2 p.m., the Sudanese army reported that Daglo had surrendered himself, which turned out to be a false claim, but over the course of the day, it became clear that Sudan's government wasn't collapsing. Severe clashes between the two sides were reported throughout the rest of the day, both claiming tactical victories against the other. On April 16th, one day after the rebellion began, the Sudanese government turned off telecommunications in the entire country to complicate communication for the RSF, who on the same day captured the city of Nyala. After the United Nations tried to intervene diplomatically, both sides agreed to stop the fighting every day between 4 to 7 p.m. You can already guess how well the agreement was adhered to by the two conflict parties. On April 17th, clashes again occurred in Khartoum, in which the SAF, that is short for Sudanese Armed Forces, took back control of the national television Sudan TV, who resumed their broadcast with pro-army propaganda on the same day. Both sides agreed to a first 24-hour ceasefire negotiated by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, which took effect on 6 p.m. However, both sides almost immediately broke it and fighting in Khartoum resumed. In the following days, fighting continued in all parts of the country, most notably Khartoum and Omdurman. On the 21st of April, both sides signed a ceasefire because of the Islamic Eid al-Fitr feast, which is the end of Ramadan, to allow celebration in the country. The ceasefire was meant to be permanent, but was again broken on the same day it took effect. Do you notice a pattern here? Street fighting was reported in Khartoum and Omdurman, with several deaths on both sides. On the 25th of April, remember the ceasefire was still in place, Omdurman suffered a heavy artillery attack for which both sides blamed each other. As we will explore in future videos on this channel, this is a typical pattern for African civil wars. A conflict starts out of nowhere, heavy fighting breaks out, both sides claim victory, and both sides agree to several ceasefires and then break them immediately, putting the blame on the other side every time. Why does this happen in Africa all the time? Well, we have to find out in future videos. Anyway, back to Sudan. So, the fighting continued even though there was a ceasefire in place, and the next few days were marked by a lot of street fighting and artillery attacks. Also, first reports of human rights violations emerged from the Darfur region, in which the RSF was accused of mass killings and rapes in the region. RSF leader Daglo interestingly didn't challenge the claim, but said that it was in fact the Sudanese army who had committed these crimes, claiming that they were wearing RSF uniform in order to put the blame on his militia. International observers point out that there is massive evidence against the RSF and that Daglo's claims are likely false. On April 30th, the Sudanese army announced a large airstrike to destroy the RSF forces in Khartoum, with uncertainty remaining about how effective it really was. It probably only did little damage as fighting in Khartoum continued. On May 6th, shots hit the car of the Turkish ambassador while he was driving through Khartoum, leading to Turkey moving its embassy to the city of Port Sudan. After this incident, reports from Sudan became really sparse, although the civil war continued. In February of 2024, the army was able to break the RSF blockade of Omdurman, scoring its first major victory in the conflict. As the tide of the war was turning in favor of the army, they launched a major offensive in Khartoum in September of 2024. In November, a Russian veto in the UN Security Council blocked a resolution by the United Kingdom and Sierra Leone that would have called for a ceasefire. Remember, officially there was a ceasefire in place, although nobody cared about it at this point. It seemed that negotiations were hopeless as both sides were completely unwilling to make agreements with each other and prepared for total war. On the 11th of January 2025, the army recaptured the city of Wad Madani near Khartoum from RSF forces and prepared an offensive on the city to recapture it completely. This happened ultimately on March 27th when the Sudanese army took back full control of Khartoum. However, the RSF is far from finished. For example, they took control of the city of Al-Fashir after a 500-day-long siege. As they entered the city, the RSF committed countless war crimes and crimes against humanity, which we will explore in the third section of this video. As of right now, the Sudanese civil war continues, and although the army managed to win important victories, the RSF is still strong and continues to be a major threat to the Sudanese government. Now, as we have explored the timeline of the war, we have to talk about the genocide by the RSF in Sudan, about which the international media stays silent. Since the start of the war, countless reports about war crimes committed by the RSF have emerged from Sudan, which the RSF continues to deny to this day. Especially in the Darfur region, recent satellite images have painted a haunting situation there, with many dead bodies laying in open on the streets of cities in the region. As I mentioned before, this is not the first time the RSF commits genocide against the people of Darfur. They've actually done it before in the Darfur rebellion. The RSF consists of radical Islamic Arab nationalists who have a deep hatred for the Darfur tribes as they are non-Arabic. But they are not the only victims. In the before-mentioned capture of al-Fashir by the RSF, they committed a massacre against the civilians in the city. At least 2,500 people were killed, dozens of rapes occurred, and reports of wide-scale lootings emerged from the city. The UN condemned the attack, but was unable to pass a resolution due to Russian veto. The worst massacre happened in the city Al-Junaina, in the Darfur region. Reports say that up to 15,000 inhabitants were killed, the high point of the genocide by the RSF. According to the United Nations, the humanitarian situation in Sudan is the worst in the entire world. 3.6 million children are malnourished. Over 1.7 million people have fled the country, most of them into neighboring Chad. And half of the population, about 25 million people, need humanitarian help, according to the UN. The total death toll ranges between 90,000 and 200,000, although there are hundreds of thousands of missing people, many of them probably dead. And while the international community was quick to condemn Israel's war against Hamas, calling it a genocide, they are mostly silent about the events in Sudan. Countries that support Israel, like the United States, get highly criticized for their action. But no one criticizes the countries that fund and support the RSF. Most important of them all, the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, and Russia. Especially the UAE got accused of funding the RSF by international observers and the Sudanese government, which makes sense considering that their trade rival Saudi Arabia supports the Sudanese army. It is important to note, however, that the United Arab Emirates have consistently declined their involvement in the Sudanese civil war. After the Sudanese government sued the UAE at the International Criminal Court in Den Haag, the Emirates officially called it a, quote, cynical PR stunt. So, to this day, the foreign involvement in the war is debated. I want to conclude this video by saying that my hopes and prayers go out to the people of Sudan, and I hope that the horrible civil war will end as soon as possible. If you want to help, you can donate money to organizations like UN Crisis Relief, Doctors Without Borders, or UNICEF. This was Global Politics, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.